if it is actually streaming, which it is, very good. If the audio is not too bad. Okay, slight delay, which is strange. No, it's okay. It's just YouTube. Very strange. All right, so basically, if you have been following any of the economy here in Australia, to recap, we had a head of the RBA fired, removed from their position because Australia had constant, inflation problems. Maybe they should have looked forward in the future before all of this, but they didn't, and they got removed, and we got a new head of the RBA, and supposedly the rate rises had been solved because it's the RBA, Reserve Bank of Australia, that makes all their decisions, that helps influence policy, monetary policy here in Australia. Now, a while ago, I had, mind you, right? So you're listening to a gig economy with a Bachelor of Accounting who specializes in crypto and is not too bad with a 12 gauge. So keep that in mind. If you go back and have a look, right? And remember this article here. Australian interest rates on November the 1st. Now, IMF says Australia needs higher rates while inflation soars for working families. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the International Monetary Fund, I mean, I never voted in the Reserve Bank of Australia's head or the Reserve Bank of Australia itself. It might have a somewhat different function to the Fed in the US, the one that's not actually federal. It's as federal as the Federal Express, as the saying goes. And the International Monetary Fund here in Australia has put its weight, I would say, because I come to that conclusion, because guess what happened? Today they raised rates on Melbourne Cup Day, 0.25 basis points. Since when did the IMF have the ability to influence things? Well, let's go have a look, dig just a little bit deeper on this, right? What is, and I'm sure everyone in cryptocurrency knows what an SDR is. It's called a special drawing right. Now, the first time I ever heard of this was way back in 2000, or possibly 2012, I can't remember. I was hearing about, learning about currency from Jim Rickards. I came across this particular video and it was very interesting. Later on, I came across his services again, and this stuck with me, the special drawing right. So I did some research into this. Now, a special drawing right is a type of international reserve asset created by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which apparently can tell Australia when they shouldn't or shouldn't raise rates, to supplement the existing official reserve of member countries. Now, I'm pretty sure, Australia is a part of the IMF. Now, think of it like a currency that can be used by countries to settle their debts with each other. If you look into it, no other country can actually ever go bankrupt because of this system. SDRs are based on a basket of major currencies, including the US dollar, euro, yen, pound, sterling, and Chinese yuan. They were added more recently. Mind you, it was 2023 now. The value of the SDRs is determined by the value of these currencies and is adjusted daily. Member countries can use SDRs to obtain the currency of other member countries or to repay debts to the IMF. They can actually earn yield. Overall, SDRs provide a way for countries to manage their international reserves and help promote international monetary cooperation and stability. Like a T-share. Now, so I thought, how do countries trade them? Countries can trade SDRs, so they can actually trade them, through a few different channels. First, the International Monetary Fund can allocate SDRs to its member countries based on the quota share in the IMF. Allocate these SDRs can be used to countries to settle their debts with other member countries or obtain other currencies, the baskets. Second, SDRs can be traded between member countries through voluntary exchanges. This allows countries with excess SDRs to sell them to other countries in exchange for currencies or other assets. Third, SDRs can be used as a form of payment for certain transactions between member countries, such as settling international trade balances or paying loans. Overall, the trading of SDRs is governed by the rules and regulations set forth by the IMF, which works to ensure that the exchange of SDRs is conducted in a fair and transparent manner. Now, I'm not sure how this is all playing out with the sanctions that are in place, but again, that is another topic that we could look at. But the next thing I want to look at now, I wasn't when I was using ChatGPT to one of the first things I looked at with ChatGPT to try and not test its understanding, because like I said, I gave you my particular background. If I can find the very top, now there's going to be a long stream, and at the end of this I'm going to get into some more interesting stuff if you can tolerate. Now, what's happening? Intel. This one is a continuation of my I haven't done a vlog in ages. I just would jump online and stream about random stuff of the day. Haven't done it for a while because I sort of shifted orientation towards crypto and hex. And now I thought I'll go back to an old school vlog. Now, what is quantum theory? As per ChatGPT, now this is, the first AI ChatGPT. There's others coming out. I can't wait to see what Grok has to say about all of this. And I would love to know if there was like some advanced, hyper intelligent AI that we haven't got access to play with yet. Because this is the free version. I'm pretty sure there's a paid for version, and there's the one on the Microsoft. Now, I just want to read it because I'm just going to read this out. I haven't read this for ages. What is quantum theory? I asked ChatGPT. It told me that quantum theory is a bunch of physics that describes the behavior and matter of energy at a very small scale, such as the scale of atoms and subatomic particles. It is a fundamental theory in physics and has been extremely successful in explaining a wide range of physics phenomena. The theory is based on the idea that energy and matter can exist in certain discrete states rather than being continuous as classic physics would suggest. The theory also is so. Technically, if you were to drop a pen, every one in whatever the figure is, it might just fall straight to the table. That's the possibility. Going back to this, the theory is based on the idea that energy and matter can exist in certain discrete states, blah, 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 blah. The theory also introduces the concept of wave-particle duality. Joule Slip's experiment comes to mind, which states that subatomic particles can exhibit properties of both waves and particles depending on how they're observed. The theory also introduced the concept of superposition and entanglement, which leads to many counterintuitive phenomena. Now, I'm reading this and I've always wondered, okay, so what is superposition and entanglement? So I typed in what is the use case? What is the function? Why do I want to learn about this? If it's even real. What can superposition be used for? I asked ChatGPT. It told me superposition is a fundamental concept in quantum mechanics that describes the ability of a quantum system to exist in multiple states at the same time. It is used in a wide range of quantum technologies, including quantum computing. Superposition is a key component of quantum computing, which allows for the manipulation of multiple states at once, leading to significant speed up for types of computation. Be really cool to see them working. Quantum cryptography. Superposition of states can be used to create unbreakable codes for secure communication. Kind of cool stuff. Quantum sensors. Superposition can be used to enhance the sensitivity of quantum sensors, making them useful in a wide range of applications such as medical imaging and navigation. Imagine one day being able to go onto a quantum computer and just saying, ChatGPT, invent this, create this, build this, and having like a 3D printer that can just produce anything or something similar. That would be insane. Now, first thing I'd be like, give me some more hex, maybe, I don't know. Give me some more gold, give me some more cash. Print out some rare cars. Now, next in quantum sensors, did that. Quantum simulation. Superposition can be used to simulate complex quantum systems, which can help in understanding the behavior of materials and chemical reactions. Quantum meteorology. Superpositions can be used to improve the precision of measurement, which is useful in a wide range of applications such as timekeeping and navigation. These are just a few examples, but the potential uses of superposition is still being explored and many more possibilities arise in the future. Just to add to that, also to my CV, I'm also a qualified truck tire fitter and a window cleaner. Should you really be listening to me about quantum theory using ChatGPT? I don't know. Now, is there any calculations for a superposition as an example to understand it better? I'm like, hang on, what? Because I wanted to see the maths, right? Like, I'm still waiting for T-shares, the maths. I need to see the maths. Is there any calculation for superposition? So, if I can see it in a calculation, I might be able to understand it. Now, I'm looking at this and it looks like hieroglyphics to me, but I'll still go on. A simple exchange of superposition in quantum mechanics is the superposition of two states in a two-level system. For example, consider a quantum bit qubit, which can exist in either states of, I believe 0 and 1 is what they're saying there, because that's from all the documentaries I've watched. One of which was from, I think he's the US-Japanese scientist. I can't think of his last name. He went on the Joe Rogan show, and he was basically explaining how, if you wanted, in a documentary, not on the show, if you wanted to become, interested in quantum theory, you might have to actually learn about normal physics first, pursue that career, and then specialize in quantum theory. Anyway, moving on. A qubit in superposition is distracted by a linear combination of these states. I don't even know how to present that. It looks like beta, possibly alpha in there, 0 and 1. Equal sign. Now, where alpha and beta are complex numbers and alpha squared plus beta squared equals 1, I think possibly that's what that's saying again. Describes a qubit. This is a superposition of the 0 and the 1 states, with the coefficients A, alpha, and beta determining the probability of measuring the qubit in each state. In other words, if we measure this qubit, probably getting 0 is A and 2, and the probability of getting 1 is B2. The coefficients A and B can be represented by a point on the complex plane forming a circle of radius 1 is known as the Bloch sphere. This representation is useful for visualizing the state of a qubit and the effect of quantum gates on it. Now, I'm pretty sure this is double slit experiment mathematics simplified. Now, another example of superposition is the superposition of two energy states in a quantum harmonic oscillator. The state of the quantum harmonic oscillator can be described by a superposition of the energy Einstein states. Don't know. Summation something bracket C underscore N times something N equals bracket. Where this is why I like to use chat bots to try and help me understand what I don't fully understand at all. Maybe one day someone will crack this, Another example of superposition is the superposition of two energy states in a quantum harmonic oscillator. Okay, covered that. Where N and the energy N states, so N are complex coefficients. The Quist equation describes a quantum harmonic oscillator that is in a superposition of the different energy and okay, so this is probably going to shit out of people. So what I'll do, I'll skip this. So I tried to ask a quantum bit can exist in either one of two states. How can this be better understood? I go through, I ask it, keep asking until I try and get a better understanding. Now, the next thing so after taking into account all of that information, trying to understand it, I have a general interest across many things. I have searched the internet way too much on YouTube before it changed. Like I said, I came across some weird stuff years and years and years ago. It was like before I found a conspiracy website, I was like just scrolling through YouTube, and it was almost like YouTube was just feeding me like what I wanted to learn. It had huge amounts of documentary, huge amounts of like UFO stuff I was coming across. Some of it just looked like shit, but some of it looked more legitimate. So I still have a strong passion in UFOs, hence my continuation in researching that sort of area. But a strange thing took place. Not long after that, I wasn't able to search the same videos on YouTube anymore. So I'm not sure if they were being removed, the names were changing, or just the content was being pushed to the bottom. That was my main go-to for documentaries, just stuff posted on the internet on YouTube. So you got to be careful, what is actual real, what is fake. I still remember scrolling the internet one day and this ad comes up and saying, "Are you interested in being a UFO hunter?" It was just the weirdest stuff, man. Now, so that leads me into keeping technology, if you can understand any of that, right? Which I believe some people can, because the actual real world uses are stated here: quantum computing, quantum cryptography, sensors, and the like, simulation, and metrology. I'm not so familiar with any of them really. Like I said, I like the idea of time travel. And if we look here, basically this is again my continuation on the UFO front, and funnily enough, the UFO front has a connection, I would say, with technology. Whether or not it's quantum technology or not, I'm not actually sure at this point, but what I'm seeing is, again, it could be fake, could be nothing, but what I'm seeing is, if I can get my audio ready, a strong connection between technology that could be maybe withheld from the masses, due to where is it here? Sorry, I'm just getting my audio check. So due to, for whatever reason, like imagine if, for instance, you had a entire economy running perfectly fine, and someone comes out and tells you that, oh, by the way, did you know there's a machine potentially that creates 0 point energy and can fuel your refrigerator forever, can fuel your car forever, can charge your generator forever, but we can't charge anything for it. So that's what apparently took place way back when Tesla, the original Tesla, not the Elon Musk's Tesla company, which he meant, like it's mentioned here. Basically, he jokingly says it's a Musk when you drive around in Tesla, like it's not actually Tesla Technologies. And where was I going with this? So basically, do you put it past? It's a bit of a conspiracy. This one, an extreme conspiracy. Do you basically put it past? I don't know, certain powers that be to hide certain technologies. Lately, we saw UFOs come out and no one even cared about it because everyone was too busy worried about like wars and the economy. I don't know. Now, the question is again, I'll let this play instead of my ramblings, does the technology that can move through space at unimaginable, mind-bending speeds, how are they traveling, Could that technology be used for good or bad? Could they even be time machines? Who knows?
That's a
So
ship.
let's thank them for coming.
Wow, and it's above the sea level.
Please turn off your night scope, Charles. Off.
I mean, I find this stuff pretty interesting. I don't know about you guys, but
Someone's infrared or whatever.
Yeah, that's Charles.
it's like that CE5 initiative from
Oh, whoa.
my understanding.
Oh, here they come.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
What you have just heard, I would say a handful of people on Earth know, even in classified projects. It's highly compartmented. This is really way past TS-SCI, top secret special compartmented intelligence. I'm working now to try to bring this information, and more equally importantly, the technologies that are behind these spacecraft and things that are being reported on CNN now, because what the public isn't being told is that we have in fact figured out how those objects operate, and that would give us an entirely new and advanced civilization where we would not need fossil fuels, oil or gas or coal or nuclear power.
I don't know why, but there's something deep within me that wants to believe this is all real, and not 100% full of shit, not 100% a fabricated narrative, and not 100% insane asylum thoughts. I'll continue on, but it's good to know, like I said, apparently I'm not the only one that is inclined to think in this manner, so I will continue on. Yeah.
So it's a very big story. Most people think the secrecy around this is because the government has just been incompetent. That's not true. That narrative is a false narrative. The true narrative is that, I will quote from a top secret memo released during the past few decades, but it was dated 1951, and it stated that the subject was the most classified matter in the US government, exceeding the classification of the development of the hydrogen bomb.
So 1951, think about how long ago that was, and the amount of technological breakthroughs that have been either withheld from us all, or like, why is it that I'll let it play. Like, why is it that just before I do, why is it that we seem to be making the same mistakes over and over again? Again, I could quote the definition of insanity, but I won't.
I'm quoting. So a lot of people think this is about aliens. I said, no, it's not about ETs. It's about humans, and how are humans going to get out of the conundrum we're in, which is a very serious problem, and move forward as a civilization instead of sliding backwards. The public thinks that, God.
Imagine if it's a mind-bending experience, exercise, because if you are to think that the ultimate goal is financial freedom, that's fine. But then if this technology was to be released, then that would crush your conception of what freedom is, because it could potentially crush the economy. Now, it may not crush the economy if it's done right, if it's released in the proper ways. I have no idea what it is, but if someone was ever to come out with this, even government itself, if it was done in a decentralized manner, as it goes on to explain, it would be done in real time, live on stream, something like this, just scientists were watching live on stream, producing and then reproducing. It would be absolutely mind shattering. And if it was real, and then you could actually go about changing the world and releasing these technologies. But then, like I said, your fundamental understanding on how like what money is, would you even care if you had if you no longer need money because you have a device that can produce infinite energy potentially, which then can produce infinite Bitcoin miners, I don't know, and then why would you care anymore? You'd have infinite, it's a fascinating thing to think about, because so much of the struggle I think that we go through is kind of man-made and designed, because we all seek to achieve financial freedom. We will have to go through this struggle to get go through the 9 to 5, and then maybe study, get a better job, get promoted, and then by the time you finish doing all this, have kids, have a family, raise the kids. By the time you finish doing this, you're retiring and you're too old to enjoy your money. So I've heard so many times. And if something was put in place to give humanity actual freedom from the inception, imagine something like a stock or a token that just goes up forever. Something that goes up and to the right forever, like something, if that was released, it would remove a lot of suffering that we see. And if something like AI, for instance, can come out and be like a little assistant to help us achieve that, I wouldn't be against it. But going back to the technology that they're talking about, I'll let this play. If I can find my orange cursor.
Is in heaven, and everything is in orbit, and everything is. We actually are living in a situation where the extreme secrecy Eisenhower warned us about, the worst of that has come to fruition. And frankly, no one is reporting that. Certainly not the mainstream news media. This is not just the United States, by the way. The same situation exists in Great Britain and Australia. I've met with ministers of defense in most of the Five Eyes countries, which are, of course, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Great Britain, US. I think this is the part of the story that people have a hard time, in a sense, getting their minds around, because we all grew up with our history lessons and our civics lessons, and the president is the commander-in-chief and blah, blah, blah. In reality, the emperor has no clothes, and there are classified projects that go on, unfortunately, that are not supervised by the president or the Congress. And actually, the CIA director's wife, who at the time was the chief operating officer of the National Academy of Sciences.
This is why I think, honestly, anything that has the potential to, really help and empower any individual, depending on which way you look at it, it really does get censored and sort of shut down. And whether that be the means in which they do that, I'm not sure, because if I knew, I could step around it and then help whatever I'm trying to help flourish. Maybe I'm just not thinking enough, about how to solve this. But yeah.
Said to me during our 2 or 3 hour meeting with the CIA director, she turned to me, she said, how are these civilizations communicating across the vastness of interstellar space? Because the speed of light is too slow. And for people.
So this is like, I think this is how I discovered this sort of stuff, because I had this inquisitive mindset to try and understand something as simple as the double slit experiment, in terms of as simple as, you know, seeing it and viewing, you know, when you're really young, you sort of learn everything you can. And the things that I used to hate the most was space documentaries, because I would watch it and go, hang on, what do you mean you don't know what's out there? You got to tell me what's out there. I can't not know what's out there. Like if you watch a documentary about a particular sport or how like a car's built, you know, you watch it from the beginning to the end, and the end product is the car. It's like, hang on, with space, what do you mean we don't know? So that led me to wanting to understand things that are unknown, whether that be paranormal, whether that be extraterrestrial in nature, whether that be technology. It's just, I find this stuff really fascinating, you know, and I find the ability to be able to express this to others on YouTube without being censored into oblivion, an important part of this process. However, I can't help but notice every single time you get to a certain level, sometimes, not always, depending on what you say and how you go about it, you can get censored off certain platforms. Now, I'll let this play.
People aren't scientists on their viewership. Let me explain. At the speed of light, to go 1% of the way across our own galaxy, the Milky Way, would take it, which is 1,000 light years, which is the distance light goes at 186,000 miles every second for a year. That's 1 light year. 1,000 light years is 1% of the way across our galaxy, which is one galaxy amongst trillions.
So if you went, like the time travel thing, I know I keep harping about that. It goes all the way back to some of the technologies that they allegedly reportedly found in like after World War II and stuff, the Glocken or whatever, the bell. Something about, I can't remember how I came across that, but then something about traveling into the future is possible if you had a device that could travel, say, you know, 1,000 light years into the future, then back at the speed of light. You would come back, and everything around you would have aged significantly, based on the mathematics. And technically, you could say that is time travel forward in future. As to time travel back in the future, I'm still not sold on it, but I would like to know how.
But at the speed of light, for you to even communicate and say, hey, how are you doing? And to answer back, that would be the time since the birth of Christ, 2,000 years, for that transmission to happen with what you and I are using right now on electromagnetic signals. So we knew as scientists and that there had to be something else that these civilizations were using. And what we discovered was that they have very, very sophisticated electronics. And this is, of course, what Elon Musk at
I'm pretty sure, again, I can't verify this because I wasn't there when they discovered whatever they discovered at Roswell. I remember watching a documentary and they said one guy was just like, he wished they never covered it up. I don't know if that's true or not. I also remember watching something about technology that was developed around that same time, something to do with the transistor and how the transistor was developed. I mean, that's all I know. And then that led to like sort of things like microchips. And we are where we are today. And that's what we know about. Imagine the stuff that we don't know about. You can imagine for national security reasons, if there is certain systems in place that would be super highly secret. Imagine if there's levels above that, you know. Does that really exist? Who knows? Could all be bullshit. But stuff I like to think about because I like to think there's unknowns.
Neuralink, he has a company called Neuralink is working on, that interface with directed thought. Now, this is probably where I've lost half your audience. And they're going, what? What we had discovered is that, in fact, these civilizations that are from various star systems have technologies that Elon Musk could only dream about. In other words, they very accurately transmit and send and receive directed quanta of thought instead of an electromagnetic signal per se, through what's called field consciousness. And the consciousness field is, I mean, it sounds very Buddhist or Vedic, but the consciousness field is actually not bound by space-time.
See, it's a mind fuck. If it's not bound by space-time, technically, that's the concept. You can be everywhere at once, both forward and back in time. You could send yourself signals from the future to present day. To make the right decisions, maybe. I don't know. What else? I was going to say something. I can't remember what it was. I'll let it play through.
Space or time. And because of that, there's no limit on the speed of it. It's instantaneous because of what's called non-locality in physics. Is a bit obtuse and technical to get into probably here, but what non-locality means is that it's not based in the linear speed of light or the linear speed of sound or what have you. It's instantaneous because of the nature of conscious field, the field of.
Have you ever like, see, and I wonder how this is connected. Have you, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It like, but that's if you believe it though, because, that's like quantum entanglement. That's why if they run an experiment and they two are entangled, and if one is 0, the other one is 1, basically vice versa. They have like polar spins on them. If one is up, one is down. I don't know if that's a technical term. It's like the one if you check the cat if it's alive or not. Anyway, have you ever had an experience where you actually potentially know what the person's thinking, or you're able to predict? Now, whether or not that's just because the person's giving off certain body language, whether or not they're reaching for something, I'm not sure if that's even possible. But imagine if it was. Imagine if it happened more often than not. It would make reading body language extremely easy to tell if someone's telling the truth or not, or even judging character, like the reasons behind it, like why they would say how they're speaking and whether or not they're full of shit or whether or not it's something that's actually true. Again, though, I guess actors, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be an actor, so I guess actors could actually, act in a certain way to invoke that certain feeling. So that could be a way around it. I'm not sure. But what I was saying is, like I said, have you ever had an experience where you think you understand what the person's saying and then they actually say it? Or, experiences like that. I don't know if you call them paranormal, but maybe it's a part of, like I said, this field. There is some studies now. There's more research about how the stomach works and how the heart works in terms of the electromagnetic field it gives off, and the ability to sense that. Again, they may mention it here. I can't remember, but I'll play this thing. I guess the conscious field. Whether you're attuned to it. In some martial arts, they call it like chi, and sometimes you can sense what some person's going to do before they do it, or actually as they're doing it. It's very interesting. I guess. If you ever watch or ever heard about sports players and they coach themselves, or they have coaching and they like sort of envision it happening and then it happens, it's not like what is it, law of attraction sort of stuff, but maybe it's similar in nature. Maybe it's like the field. I honestly don't know. I just find this stuff interesting. I want to know more. If anyone knows more, please feel free to share.
Consciousness. This is to me the most interesting stuff. Because this whole science of consciousness is actually the big science for the next 1,000 years, but we have to catch up to the last 70 to 100 years of energy and propulsion technologies that have been hidden away so we don't destroy the biosphere. Why are we still using jet engines from the 30s, 40s, 50s, or rockets from the 40s? I'm saying because...
And I think people are waking up to this. Like, I think people are starting to question more often than not. Why did we all not leave the house? Why did, like in that one instance? Or then those same people now might be sort of expanding their mind, going, hang on, do we really need to be working this 9 to 5 like in the office? Isn't there a better way of doing it? But previously there was never a better way until we were forced to do so, and we're being forced not to do so now. It's being like trying to be unwound. I'm not sure whether or not they'll succeed, but we all have seen how easily people sort of are subservient to the powers that be, whether or not it's maybe it's a business you're in, I don't know. Maybe it's the actual government, I don't know. So part of the problem would be building up the ability to even question, and like, what questions are you even asking? Is it relevant to how we can all achieve this sort of, I call it the global awakening. I don't know if there's another saying for it, but I really do think that the planet is going through a sort of a shift. Like, you can feel it in your gut, something's not right, but how do we fix it? And then what do we get? Endless wars, crushing economy, and maybe more censorship. And meanwhile, there's some other cool stuff like right over here that we could be looking at, but we're too busy because we're working, we're tired, we're thirsty, we're hungry. you know, things like that. And so I think that's where, if you can get financial freedom through whatever means possible, I guess legally and lawfully, then maybe, just maybe, you have the ability to try and either teach others or maybe research. I don't know. I just feel like the more people that try, the higher the statistical chance that we will actually succeed in changing the planet for a better civilization in the future. Not just for us, for like generations to come. If we make it that
the
far.
alternative would completely terminate the petrodollar system and oil and gas and
That's what I'm
coal
saying.
and nuclear power
And people
and
are
public
understanding
utilities.
this.
All of it is redundant, completely unnecessary.
But imagine understanding this, and imagine being very high up in an investment bank. Imagine being in a stock trading firm. Imagine being an economist. Imagine being a university lecturer. How are you going to teach? How are you going to tell them, oh, there's stuff we don't know, and there's stuff that could basically break your understanding and make you completely obsolete. Basically, you would be viewed as the Stone Age. It would be very hard to explain this to others.
Tesla actually had a prototype car that was pulling energy out of the environment. And he didn't really understand what that was. We do now. It's called zero point energy or quantum vacuum energy. But basically, just for people who are non-scientific, if you visualize a coffee cup, the amount of space inside that cup has enough energy to boil off all the oceans of the planet in its potential.
Dude.
And it's called the zero-point energy field. It's been
Zero-point energy.
quantified. It was in academic papers in the 50s.
This one. Look at this.
Professor Casimir.
I gotta look up this one. I've never even heard of, up until about an hour or two ago, the Casimir effect. And if I had, I've forgotten about it. There was one called the Searle effect, and he basically made this machine. He came from a background to do with electronics and understanding how to use electronics to basically put a pattern onto magnets and to affect their polarities. And I don't know how he did it, but he made this machine, allegedly, reportedly, I've never seen one. It basically spun, and as it spun faster and faster, infinitely, it generated electricity, A, and also B, as it went faster, it actually got lighter in maths, and actually got cooler. So what the hell? Again, that's the Searle effect. You know, you can look it up. Whether or not that's real, I have no idea. I would love to see one in real life, you know. Someone's like, oh yeah, we got one in the back here. And he's just like, what the hell? Zero-point energy machine, okay. This one, the Casimir effect, I have not heard. But I'll continue.
Casimir effect. But Tesla stumbled across this way back, early 20s, I believe, maybe before. But JP...
Isn't it the 369 thing? I'm not sure. The 369 and the shell of life. I can't remember what it's called. There's some mathematics behind it. I think the law of squares was one of them that, from memory, was part of the Searle effect, which zero-point energy generator. I'm not sure if that's what it's called. They were supposed to produce them, but I've never actually found out if they did or not.
Morgan said, look, if we can't put a meter on it, we don't want it.
This was what I was saying before.
So Tesla died a very bitter man. I always joke that Elon Musk doesn't have a Tesla that he's manufacturing. He has a Musk. And the reason I say that sort of jokingly is that a true Tesla would never have to be plugged into the grid.
Imagine that.
It would be pulling energy out of this state of energy that's around us.
But then how would the entire planet function if we're not all obsessed with getting our petrol to get to and from work? Like, for the last however many years since the inception of the gas, combustion engine, yeah, that could be a problem for people inventing these things, you know. Really, really large, rich and powerful bloodlines and families and stuff could come after you, potentially. I don't know. But we see here as a breakdown now, it could be all fake. Maybe JP Morgan doesn't exist and the company doesn't exist and the bank's just all fake. We live in a simulation. I don't know. But the fact is that those branches exist, and there are people called that those names and have that last name and have that bloodline. I'm pretty sure there's those people with those last names still sitting on boards of banks. It's very, very interesting stuff if you want to look into that. And that goes into the economy and how the economy is connected to technology and how everything is connected, you know. It really is, in one way or another. It's fascinating to think about.
Very high voltage systems. They're called VHV, very high voltage systems that create an opening into that energy field.
Now, me trying to explain this to anyone, they look at me like they have no idea what I'm talking about, because maybe it makes no sense at all, or maybe it makes perfect sense. I'm not sure. You be the judge. You be the judge.
And Tesla did enough experimentation with these sort of very high voltage systems at certain resonant frequencies, cycles per second, hertz, that he broke into that area of science, but no one wanted it to come out. Now, fast forward 100 years later.
So let's get this right. Let's get this straight. So based on this, what reportedly this is saying, someone came up with a really good idea and he got censored because it would affect, it would break the minds of too many people. So they have to censor it because it's dangerous. So hang on. Isn't that still sort of going on today? Like, I remember I was watching the stream the other day, and basically there was, I didn't realize other people knew about this. There was people that had invented an engine that ran off water. It was actually from South Australia, from my understanding. My old man was telling me, and there was a couple of brothers, and they disappeared. And everyone was like, what the fuck? You can go back and look. I think they were on the news, and it was in a news article. They actually disappeared. No one knows what happened to them. So maybe they got more money they can dream of, or maybe let's just go with that, I guess. Now, moving forward, so people got censored and their technologies got shunned, so because the rich and powerful didn't like it. Couldn't that be an equivalent to what we're seeing now in the financial system? We're seeing sort of an awakening, an enlightenment, the ability of people to literally make their own money, like with things like cryptocurrencies, maybe gold, I don't know with gold, but I would say cryptocurrencies. Maybe, just maybe, that's the thing that we're all going to create and sort of step around this fiat system. Now, I'm not sure it's going to play out like that in the long run, because there is levers, I believe, the governments will try and pull to shut everything down as best they can and censor technology. Because if this can be done, and this is real, it could be fake, who knows, but if this can be done, if this sort of thing can be done, then could it not be done to an individual? Could it not be done to an idea? And could it not be done to a technology, like something that could help us all achieve a type 1 civilization at the cost of huge hegemonic powers that be financially.
We're still burning gasoline in engines and rocket fuel and jets. And that's a tragedy for the human race, but it's a tragedy for the planet, and it's a tragedy for our children and my 9 grandchildren. So my concern is, the future. The past is the past, but we have to figure out how to catch up and sort of back to the future. It's like,
yeah, I love it. There's always stuff that I don't know, that someone else knows, and then when you put the pieces of the puzzle together, sometimes it makes a whole picture. So that's why I really think getting together, whether that be on a stream together or whatever, even just watching other people to a lesser extent and understanding their personal thoughts, and talking to people in real life, it is a way of interacting and sharing these ideas. Because imagine if it came very close in 2019, I believe, for people that watch the media, and in some countries, imagine if you could get everyone in the entire planet to have the exact same thought at the same time and want the same thing. What would actually happen? Like, I know world peace is like a Miss Universe thing, but imagine if that actually took place, what sort of effect that would have on the planet. Or you could look at another angle. What if, everyone wanted to be, wealthy or something, or healthy? What if everyone wanted to live longer? Like, what if that was literally ingrained in everyone and they all thought the same shit? And then it came to fruition, or they wanted to solve a particular problem. But from what I'm seeing, there's a study, they basically hooked up all these sensors around the world, and they could people have the ability to influence these sensors, and they don't know how it's working. They're studying it, but for some reason on 9/11 there was a huge shift, and everyone sort of shifted these sensors. That was it was abnormal, and basically I think what it was, the reaction around the world to what took place. Now I can imagine these sensors. The first thing I thought of when I thought of the 2019 stuff, I would really like to know the data behind what the sensors were showing. But yeah, I'll continue on.
So that
That comes back to the field as well.
cartoon show, the Jetsons, when they showed people flying around in these cars, when that cartoon was made, those technologies were already developed. They're not going to say, A, we know what these are. B, we know where they come from. C, we figured out how they work. Let me give you a
Imagine
date
this.
that's going to probably curl your toes. October 1954. That was the date we mastered gravity control. Now, what do I mean by gravity control? What I mean by gravity control are high voltage systems that cause an object to what looks like levitate or move the way that vehicle.
I don't know if you guys have seen it. There's a video, and he's like, could be fake. They turn this machine on, and it basically makes anything under the pad weightless. It's crazy, very crazy.
That you saw in that video released by the Pentagon this week. And they confirmed, yes, this is real footage. And they released 3 different videos. What they didn't say, because the people releasing it don't know this, because of the compartmentalization, is that there is an unacknowledged compartmented program that began studying this in the 40s and 50s, and by 1954 had figured out how those things operate.
That's why, when Nikola Tesla died, the FBI swooped into his apartment and confiscated all of his secret papers.
It's in the secret papers. Like, can you envision them? If you can, write out what they are. Make it. And do it live on air. And see what happens. Imagine if you're right.
How do I know this? I have a document from the Department of Defense.
This sounds absolutely Loonbird. Like, this could be just all for selling books and DVDs and apps. I don't know. But what if there's a slight chance that some of this stuff is real? I don't know of what use it would be for everyday people, but I think it would get to the point where if these technologies are being suppressed and they're released, I think that would improve all of humanity. And I think that's what we should be doing. We should be trying to push for as hard as we can. I don't know how we're going to get there. But if we can push for something as simple as financial freedom, that might be a good start, because then you can use those financial freedoms to work on other areas slowly, because I think this is all going to be rolled out extremely slowly. This is why we're not seeing like the immediate dump of insane technology. We're sort of seeing this slow rollout to the point where now it's 2023, moving to 2024. We're starting to see, the normalization of electronic vehicles, where previously I don't think large car manufacturers would have appreciated
demanding that the FBI turn them over and names them for what they are, the secret papers of Nikola Tesla. This is not an urban myth. I have that document. It came in this cache of documents I'm talking about.
I'm antiviral.
And I'm antiviral too. Because if you test positive to COVID-19, antiviral.
I don't know why it's giving me that. You can probably hear me coughing a lot.
You're conscious and awake. You go to sleep at night. You awaken in
I
a
love this
lucid
shit,
dream where you're flying.
as you can tell.
And that dream ends up being precognitive. You see something that happens the next day or the next week or the next year. This is a lucid precognitive dream. How many people have had one at some point in their life? Most humans have, although most scientists won't admit to it because they don't want to be discredited. Just like the Aboriginals had dream time as a routine way that they communicated at night in Australia.
So I go back to the dream that I had with the cryptocurrency, that it fucking mooned hard as, and then it just crashed, cratered. I didn't see the prices. I couldn't see the prices, but I had another dream before that, and this was ages ago, and I still, to this day, it felt quite real, surreal even. I was in this, I can't remember what it was, surrounded by some I think it was like trophies or some shit, and I remember looking at an account, and there was, I think, 2 or 3 numbers. It's pretty vague, and they were huge, absolutely huge. It was like numbers like the debt ceiling numbers, but one was green, as in like profit, and then the one was also red. And I can't remember if there was another one in red, but it was very interesting, especially later on discovering cryptocurrency, and what that has the potential to do. All right, I'll continue on.
You know that story. And that's how they would know what to do the next day. They'd meet a friend in the outback and they know where to intersect at some remote area because they did it during their dream. Well, you could do that. If you can do it 10 miles away, you can do it a billion light years away. Because you've transcended space-time limitation.
This is crazy shit. Like, it sounds
We
limbo.
can remote view. We can see the future, see the past. And of course, the masters and rishis of old could teleport, materialize,
I can't do that.
dematerialize, etc. So all conscious, higher intelligent life forms have the ability to manifest in ways that an interstellar, transdimensional extraterrestrial civilization can. This is lesson number one. It's a hard lesson. It's a really deep one. Now let's talk about remote viewing. Everybody's heard of remote viewing. CIA programs, DARPA, DIA. I know a lot of these guys. Well, that's the ability to be a seer and use consciousness to see something at a remote distance or a remote point in space-time. This is the part that you're not going to hear and see in Hollywood. That's what you're going to hear about today.
Just crazy
It's
shit,
actually
if it's real.
a level or a structure within the architecture of consciousness and non-locality where everything can be known, past, present, future, because it's in the embedded.
They did a study, and people that showed skills, showed the ability to do this. They were given stocks to trade, and basically they did very, very well. And I don't know how, but that's kind of I think is somewhat relevant to this. You have to look at these studies.
Within the
It
structure
could all be fake.
of
Could
the
all be fake, I don't know.
consciousness field. It's in every one of you. You don't have to go anywhere. This is a really critical part of this holistic technique for remote viewing. I don't particularly recommend the ones that have been military based. The so-called, the scientific remote SRV. I like the approach where you develop the understanding and experience of deep consciousness. Understand that consciousness is omnipresent and that at a quiet level of.
What do you do for a living? I understand deep consciousness. That's my job title. I used to try and do that, but life came along and I did okay. Until some other things came along. I didn't do so good.
Of the mind, when you're deep.
Now I'm
and
back
quiet,
rediscovering myself.
you can
So,
enter into this
going to be interesting the next
field
phase.
of consciousness. You want to be able to experience that state of consciousness and then relax into it and let it flow through you, and then the answer will be there. The answer will just come. Now, there are many ways to do it. The meditative state, and then going deep, and then relaxing and allowing it to be seen. That's one way. Dream time. I mentioned this before you went to bed. It was getting late. I would have gone
Right,
more
the
into this.
meditation session.
You're asleep. So as you're going to sleep, get a journal, keep something by your bedside, and begin to affirm to yourself that you can have lucid dreaming, be awake within the dream, and you can travel to places and know things in that state. You can begin to practice that on a nightly basis, and as you do it, it'll begin to go up and up and up in accuracy. So I tell people, this is walking the talk.
That sounds insane, right? I used to there's a thing called binaural beats, and basically they figured out if you can emit certain sounds and frequencies in a certain way through the eardrums at a different time. So if there was sound like coming through, not at the same time, because I don't know if you've ever done this, if you've got two phones and you just make a sound into one and make the sound into the other one, you know how you get the echo effect and it just keeps getting louder and louder and louder as it goes through? There'll be a point in time at which it hits and it will make no sound at all, because sound waves of the exact sound wave cancel each other out. there is I'm pretty sure there's a documentary about this, but that's what they say gravity is. If you have gravity and you can emit gravity against actual gravity as a wave, it'll cancel each other out. That's how sometimes you, like, you know, two exact same noises will cancel each other out. So believe me, try it. Or maybe don't, because, you know, gig economy guy here, crazy YouTuber Loonbird, into crypto, you know, maybe don't.
Here, every important thing in my life has been the result of the lucid dream, remote
I'll
viewing,
do a
meditative
stream,
state,
but-
and guidance
Oh, wait.
for, 40, 50 years. You don't take leave of your intellect or anything else, but you add this to it, and
I
it
will
creates
actually
a
one day.
beautiful world and a beautiful life.
The sound.
That's so another approach to remote viewing is doing that in that dream state. The other is when you're going to sleep, or mostly when you're waking up. You're coming out of sleep into the waking
And
state, but you're kind of in that
When he
drowsy.
said this, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, because I used to have it when I was younger, and basically, it like he said, I'd wake up, I'd be super sleepy, I'd drift back into sleep, and then I'd have the most insane dreams, like just in that sort of short fraction of time. Then I'd wake up again. Although, yeah, have had some other really interesting dreams. I still can't remember to this day what they're about. This one, I remember so much. For some reason, I was in a tunnel, and everything was like underwater, but I was just standing there and watching this like big, huge tunnel, and all these cars just came flying in. It was just insane. I still remember this to this day. I don't know if you guys have had dreams like that. The one that freaked me out the most was I watched. I don't know if you guys remember the movie Mortal Kombat. I dreamt there was like the Mortal Kombat characters like running around my backyard, and I used to have this reserve across the road from me, and I swear to God, I saw the exact same characters. I mean, it might have been easy to do because I like play the games and stuff, but the exact same characters. Because then later on, the movie came out, and I was like sitting there going, "What the fuck? They are the same characters. How they looked and everything." But yeah. And another one, I still can't remember what the dream was about to this day. I went to this crazy adventure, and then I got to this door, and just as I was about to open the door, I woke up and I was like, dude, what the hell was that? It was like some crazy looking, I don't know what it was. Anyway.
Half awake, half asleep state, but you're rested. At that juncture, the junction between dream and sleep and waking, when you're relaxed, intend to know something,
This makes-
ask to see something, ask to have a problem solved. You will be stunned at how accurate you will become in getting that information.
The secret weapon Adolf Hitler was working on was this. Why did it go black?
So-
Because they finally figured out how
This makes me want to go back to using binaural beats again. I actually have it. I haven't been using it. All these like gadgets I don't use. It's insane.
to master it, and they didn't need to have more people joining in. So they wanted to close off that discussion. This is how the spy masters operate.
If you want to make money online as an
Yeah,
affiliate marketer, you may find this a
make
little
money
bit
online
controversial,
through,
but
you
we've
know,
stumbled across a way to earn reliable paychecks.
ads, man.
Now, when they began to discover, and I want to put this into three categories. You have assets that are material, stagecraft, and let's call these advanced aircraft of man-made origin, all right? And I'm going to show you some tonight, and it will blow your mind, and it should. But are things like this, man-made, anti-gravity,
Whether or not this
going
is true,
all the way
you know,
back
like-
to the late 50s and 60s. Triangular, disc,
Maybe he's
boomerang,
just
etc.
got a
What you
cult
need to
following,
understand
you know,
is
they're all loon birds.
the gentleman I referred to and other people have confirmed of this time period to me, that around October 1954, we attained gravity control. So gravity control meaning electromagnetic systems that affect an object so it becomes seemingly weightless, levitates, and corrects for gravity. And others were using very high voltage, high frequency systems at certain hertz, cycles per
I
second.
swear to God, this is all
that would
because
cause a change.
this is all because in primary school, when I was real junior primary school, so however old that was, we're in the library. I never used to read books, and the teacher, librarian, like puts this book in the shelf and looks at me, and it was like a UFO one. I was like, dude, so I opened it, that's the first book I ever remember reading, and it had pictures and all this stuff like about what UFOs were. I can't remember if it was in fiction or non-fiction though. Cannot remember. It would be funny if it was in the in the fiction section. I'm like, oh, this is so real.
In the atomic structure and the magnetic
But later on, CNN releases footage, so maybe Lundberg was correct
field
way
in
back
such
when.
a way that you could essentially cancel mass. Okay, so without boring people with a physics lesson, if you make something close to massless, no weight,
ChatGPT,
but weight is different from mass, massless, then you can accelerate it at enormous speeds with very little power. And it can go right-hand turns, go up and down, and if you can control for the interior at 1G, in other words, one gravitational field, then you can go at 100,000 miles per hour,
That's crazy.
make a right-hand turn, and your brains don't come out of your ears. The secret weapon that we had was the atomic bomb. The secret weapon Adolf Hitler was working on was this. Why did it go black? Because they finally figured out how to master it, and they didn't need to have more people joining in. So they wanted to close off that discussion.
Whether or not this is real.
So in October 1954, gravity control was mastered, and we began to build various prototypes of what the public would call UFOs. And
Can you imagine infinite money and a credit card that you just never have to pay off, and just, I'm going to build some shit and no one's going to know about it, and they build this, or you build this? That would be crazy. Maybe that's why I don't want people, serial entrepreneurs out there like Elon Musk, because look at the stuff he's getting done versus the average sort of like myself. I'm making YouTubes about shit I want to do, as opposed to stuff I've already done.
some were made to simulate the shape, appearance, and motion of an extraterrestrial vehicle. Because what better way to confuse people than to have something that looks almost the same? Is it gold? Is it fool's gold? Is it real? Is it Memorex? Get where I'm going here? This is how the spy masters operate. So
Is it real? Is it fake? Is it real? Is it fake? Who knows? You don't know. No one knows.
call those the assets that are material physical craft. Now that's one category. We'll return to this. There's another category, and this is more difficult to understand, and that is electromagnetic assets. And these include electromagnetic systems that could optically, like a very advanced hologram, simulate an event. Electromagnetic systems that have been called popularly electronic warfare systems that are psychotronic and radionic, that interface with consciousness and thought. And electromagnetic systems that can affect large segments of the population when targeted. Now these began to be developed quite in an advanced fashion by the 40s and 50s. And by 1956, it had been accomplished to the point of state-of-the-art. And then the other asset, the third category, is human intelligence, human assets. And these are folks who, some wittingly, some unwittingly, have been provided with a script and experiences that they honestly believe are real, but that have been programmed and are like very advanced consciousness holographic experiences, if you will, electronic hallucinations.
Friends, let me listen carefully. Anyone listening, do not think you're going to be off the radar of the sector of the Intelligence Committee working tasked with this issue. No level of encryption, no level of patents, no level of spy versus.
Yeah, binaural beats. Don't listen to the ones with sound cancelling. And you're right, if you have left the right orientation, it might cause any issues. I remember on the binaural beats thing, I listened to one, it was like, it's supposed to induce optimal fear in oneself. And I did it, and afterwards I was like running around the house like just on edge. Like it was, yeah, it worked basically. It worked at an extreme level. I was going through my house at like 3 a.m. after listening to these binaural beats, and I was freaking out. Freaking out. But it was I knew that I was doing it, you know. I wasn't like some like crazed madman. I did it to induce absolute fear in a person and see how I would react, whether you can control your fear, you know. It was an interesting experience. Yeah, it's an interesting
This
topic.
spy talking in gibberish code over a phone is going to frustrate their knowing everything you're doing in real time.
This is everything else.
And the only
you know,
protection there is strategic protection, which is massive disclosure and public transparency of
this is what I
everything
like.
you are doing. The quickest way to get killed doing this stuff is to do it secretively. If you do it in full view, you're completely safe. Why? Because the people who are in these covert programs, the last thing they want to do is to be caught red-handed in a wet works operation. Wet works or assassinations. A wet works operation with the whole world watching. That's why I'm still alive.
سلام علیکم بخیر بعد با که برو بخیر و خلوم خیلی جریان تیبله بگی
that was weird.
We have to figure out how to move this, or I have to pass this on to a generation, because, you know, I won't be around for more than another 30 or 40 years. But we need people to understand what the sciences are, because this is the biggest change in the history of the human race.
Imagine this.
Every CEO and high-tech person and billionaire I've met with wants to do the technology, monetize it, have patents, keep it secret, do the R&D in secrecy, like you're developing another piece of rubbish like this cell phone.
I'm saying, what happened to those brothers that developed the engine running on water? Like, what the hell? Maybe they just got sworn to secrecy, you know, on some tropical island somewhere.
It's just junk. It's of no real significance at all. Not going to change the world. It's a telephone that you can talk on, like in the early 1900s, except it's wireless, using the same frequencies of a radio or whatever.
Yeah, this blew my mind.
It's nothing. It's nothing. Trillions of dollars into nothing. So the paradigm of doing this as a intellectual property and secret, the only way you're going to get that out is if you convince this other hardcore element within the intelligence community and corporate world that they should give up thousands of trillions of dollars of asset-based utilities and coal and oil so that this happens, and they don't want to do that. And believe me, Bill Gates can't take on this multi-trillion-dollar element. Bill Gates has no money at all compared to these guys. What can take them on? The masses of people knowing about it. The lab doing it is live streamed on the internet. It's done fully open source. And the instant you hit the sweet spot in the resonant frequencies of a free energy device, the entire world knows it, and dozens of academic centers reproduce it in real time. You squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube so hard and so fast, no one can put it back in, and the whole world knows about it at each step. Do you want to know how ETs make things? Should we get into that? Because this is actually a consciousness-assisted technology. This microphone and all this stuff has been, we cut down a tree for this. The metal was dug out of the earth, you know, Neanderthal-like, and smelted down and made into metal. And then it's riveted together in bolts and screws. Transdimensional interstellar civilizations, which means the ones that are here and have exceeded the speed of light, have mastered the sciences of transdimensional manufacturing, to wit.
See, I wonder how, like, the pyramids, can someone explain to me how the pyramids were built, like, what, with logs and cranes? I've heard one crazy loonbird theory where they manifested it and it just appeared. And now I'm hearing this, I'm like, hang on. Is this possible? I don't know. Is it crazy? I don't know. Yeah, man, that's like another one probably. There was another one that someone got poisoned or something. Like, I can't remember what it was.
They're able to create a standing resonant sonic energy field that is almost like an architectural blueprint of something, like 3D printing, but this is like 4 or 5D printing.
Imagine that. It's just like...
Get it? And in that resonant field, then materialize the object, the spacecraft, the piece of clothing from
I don't know how, I can't...
the transdimensional interface, energetic interface with the subatomic space-time matter. So that
the only thing that I can think of that can kind of relate to this is when you observe something, you change the way it functions. Like it collapses the wave field with the two double slit experiment. But I'm not seeing how, oh, I just want like a new iPhone, it's just going to appear in my hand sort of thing, magic. But maybe there's something else, yeah, I'm not understanding.
The molecules, the atoms, the structures, everything in that is coming through into this dimension of 3D from that deeper interface from another dimension, an energy field. And it just...
I remember the Native Americans, there was like a shaman they spoke to, I'm not sure if that's the right name, and basically they do the rain dance, and he was asking him, I think it was Greg Braden, he was asking him like, how do you get it to rain? Because they did it, and then I think within a few days it just poured down with rain, so it actually worked. And then he said it was like the feeling of already being done or something. He kind of tried to explain it, like the power of prayer. He was trying to like tie those two with the power of these sort of ancient practices where they sort of felt the feeling of it happening, then it sort of happened. I don't know how that would work, because then wouldn't everyone just be like, I want to be super rich, and then, you know, maybe they just use it that way. I'm not sure, but maybe that's like a different thing altogether.
Just materializing. Now the word materializes, no one thinks what that means. It's to make material, but you're assembling it from these elementals. I call them the elementals that are subatomic, and then way in past the even 0 point energy field, which is infinite energy, as Tesla said. But in that pluripotent state, you can recruit pure gold, pure platinum, iron, any metal, and biologicals, what have you. So you can then manifest that. I'm trying to articulate something that's a very advanced science in lay terms so that you can follow it. But going back to this concept of consciousness-assisted technology, so if you're connected and you see what you want to manifest, you can connect to a technology that creates this resonant and sonic, deep sonic field that then materializes that object. So not initially, but say, you know, I don't know how many years into the future, we're not even going to need to be having mining operations or manufacturing or anything that damages the earth. It will simply be this kind of high-tech 4D, 5D manufacturing. Forget 3D manufacturing. Look at it this way.
Woody.
Does everyone know what the internet is? You know how it came about? No, it was an Al Gore. It was DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Administration, and the Department of Defense developed it. By the way, they still run it, own it.
And they produce content like this. No, I'm kidding.
But the internet, which is really very open source, everyone can get online for free, right? Or you pay a subscription. But the internet itself is free. So what I'm trying to have these folks understand is, let's do this as in place of DARPA, because the government is not going to do this ever. Therefore, there is no equivalent of a DARPA to do this for us. Therefore, let us create our own organization and entity that takes the place of DARPA to create this open source, 0 point, free energy platform where it's shared openly. And then that same group would then be able to take that knowledge and do all the thousands of vertical and horizontal applications. This thing, you use it for a little while, it's dead. What if it had a miniaturized EPE, solid state system in it, and there was no battery in it, or a tiny little one, just as sort of a discharging release of energy? It never has to be plugged in. Your PC never has to be plugged in. Your refrigerators manufactured ships from the factory with a motor. It has a motor in it now, but the ZEEP is a zero-point energy motor. But the basic energy source and how it works needs to be open source. Does this make sense to folks? Just like the internet is open source. And I'm trying to convince people who are high net worth CEOs, individuals, and also inventors to leave behind this spook model of keeping an intellectual property, have it a trade secret, we'll be so cute, we're gonna outfox the secret government, we're gonna take the patent for it and divide it into 100 patents and they won't know what we're doing. By the time you've had that thought and it's emanated from your cortex, classified projects know that's what you're gonna do. And I'm not kidding. Because they have...
I've always wondered with animals as well, we like think that they can't communicate. What if there's just a different set of information that they're attuned to and they can just talk openly with each other through their, you know, their abilities? It's fascinating to think about.
Technologies that are at that level of spyware.
Call your doorbell camera company and cancel the subscription. This brand new subscription-free mini...
What I want to share tonight is personally very
flat
difficult.
chopped and
And the reason it is that this issue,
tonight on
this
Central,
presentation
we
was the
have
most difficult one I've done in 26
Dr.
years. I'm accustomed to giving folks bad news. So this is very, very bad news.
I haven't watched this part.
And I'm not saying that to be at all melodramatic. I'm telling you what the truth is. And the only reason I'm doing this is that there have been information coming in, pinging my system, indicating that we're getting closer to the hoaxing of events to stampede the world into something that would make them look like a picnic. And there are a number of signs that have been mounting on this issue over the last 6 to 9 months. And I'm gravely concerned about it. My philosophy has always been an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Because if we can do what we should tonight and get the word out about this, there's a chance we can avoid what I'm going to be discussing. So it's a bit like if you were to tell someone they have some signs for a massive heart attack and it's imminent and you can do some things right now, prevent it. You can ignore it.
I'll let you guys know if I develop any special powers.
Have a code blue where the heart stops and you have to be resuscitated. My goal here, using that medical analogy a little further, is to avoid the attack. And in this case, it would not be a medical emergency. It would be a national security and global emergency orchestrated by people who have been planning this since the 1950s.
Please don't say the Wu
So what I'm going to be discussing is what in the parlance of the Pentagon, CIA, counterintelligence programs is known as a false INW, or a deceptive INW, or indication and warning. And some years ago, I had a meeting with the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency and General Patrick Hughes. And the focus of that briefing, which was quite extensive, was to give him information so that he would not be deceived in the event of a false or deceptive INW.
I reckon this is going to be the UFO false flag.
And so you have people who often, you would think, who would have knowledge of these issues. And it turns out they do not. And then there are other people who should have nothing to do with something this sensitive who are running the project outside constitutional oversight of the president, the Congress, and their appointees, and of we, the people, most importantly. I want to be really clear that when this I'm sharing is, I would not do it if I didn't think it could be avoided. I would just keep my mouth shut and retire. I think we can avert this. I think that we can avoid the heart attack, as it were.
So much disinformation.
And that's why I'm standing here before you. Otherwise, I would have given up on this in 1994 when I first learned of all of these issues.
And then the strangest stuff you hear, that could be true.
Nah, that's fake. At the Naval Research Labs, who prior to
it's like, nah, it's fake.
The Vice President's office, saw all the plans prior to it occurring.
He's deceased. That's why I'm talking about it now. I did not talk about it for years. And he was told, I used to stay at my home. He said, look, I was told my wife and my children, my grandchildren would be killed along with me if I ever mentioned this. Now, the mother lode, the sort of the crown jewel of that kind of event is what has been planned assiduously since the 1950s.
So really
and that is a threat that would unite the world around a military junta, militarism, that would put all of humanity together, but against one or more extraterrestrial.
Yeah, the extraterrestrial threat.
Everyone thought, well, we're going to learn that lesson in Vietnam. We forgot it. We had Iraq. We forgot it. So they let a certain amount of time goes by, the population becomes complacent, we have a very short-term memory on such things.
I'm pretty sure they're not even going to talk about what took place in 2019, but that was a conspiracy theory, right? Anyway.
And then they move another one forward. Now that plan, which they came up with in the 1950s, has been very carefully rolled out. And I was asked today by a gentleman I was meeting with, he says, when do you think they might do this? I said they began in 1950 something. It's already happened.
In Atlantean times, we knew that everything was mind.
The father was not Homo sapien.
Giants have been found in the Midwest. Ishi-no-Hodens, referred to as a floating ship.
EveryoneGuide.com is my sponsor. No, I'm kidding. I don't mind that channel. All that stuff used to be free though. Now there's a whole new genre that's emerged. It's interesting.
The false flag has already happened. Now, not the crescendo moment, not the final act, all right? But acts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever, have already transpired. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, these operations figured out that the psychological warfare value of the subject was such that they could set up events that are completely hoaxed, beginning in the 50s and 60s, that would convince people that those events were of extraterrestrial origin, alien, when they were not. And so blur the lines between the actual ET activity and the human stagecraft, as it's called, that most people, including people at the White House, wouldn't know the difference.
Can you imagine if we
experienced
an alien
certainly not
invasion of some
UFO
sort?
subculture, and certainly not the media. No one in government I know, for the most part, has a clue. Even mid-level people, functionaries within the majority intelligence committee, MAJIC, that runs these operations, do not know about this. This is why Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, the first CIA director when it was formed in 1947, took the place of the OSS, said in a letter that the secrecy surrounding UFOs was a threat to the national security. This is why Eisenhower said the secrecy, unwarranted secrecy is what he said, it could be a threat to our democracy.
I'm not sure why they're playing
and
this.
they were referring to this dynamic. But
now, because this video that he's talking about seems to be
in that vacuum of secrecy, extreme, illegal, unacknowledged special access
this
projects.
Is the problem with the anonymous channel. Anyone can chop and
at
change
a compartmented level.
Want, you know.
And I was talking to a gentleman today about this. At least 21 levels, compartments, past the level of the president.
It's been an interesting watch, though. Some of the stuff
that you have a permanent infrastructure
some
that
of them,
has
like,
evolved.
I don't know about that.
Or spun off from
just beyond
the legitimate
conception.
government, but that is embedded within the corporate sector, the intelligence community, and the military sector, that has run amok viciously of our liberties and our freedoms. And we'll get into this also. This gets into some issues that are going to make me very unpopular with some folks. I don't care. I mean, we don't have time for that. I don't care if you like me, love me, hate me. People got to know the truth on this.
Oh my God. They leave you hanging. All right. that is a stream. I can't even remember what I was going to stream about, but yeah, I think it was like quantum theory, quantum physics, some understandings, some boring stuff you can read about, some cool technology, some history about me, some background, some of my interests, some of my thoughts, my deepest, darkest thoughts, and also how the IMF. So I know what's more far-fetched to believe at this point, that the IMF directly intervenes in Australia's RBA interest rates that they set, or that UFOs are. I don't know what to think at this point in time. or that technology has been suppressed from us all, causing us to not be as successful as a species as we could be. Maybe they've suppressed the life extension technologies, maybe they've kept us from traveling to the stars, maybe they've kept inflation high, so the price of everything is absolutely ridiculous. Who knows at this point in time? But what I can say is we'll find out. All right, free speech signing out.